NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Semangat pagi. Halo NextDevers, apa kabar nih ya? Semoga dalam keadaan sehat dan juga tetap semangat meskipun cuacanya ini agak mendung-mendung ya. Tapi tidak mengurangi semangat kita untuk mengikuti acara rangkaian pada hari ini. Tidak terasa, NextDev Academy kini sudah memasuki ExpertTalks yang ke-6. Dan kembali lagi bersama saya Meghalatu yang akan memandu kegiatan ExpertTalks Investment hari ini. NextDevers dalam mewujudkan komitmen Telkomsel tentunya yang luar biasa ini ya. Dan untuk mendukung pertumbuhan digital startup dengan fundamental bisnis kuat, NextDev hadir memberikan program inkubasi dan digital startup Indonesia. NextDevers, saat ini NextDev sudah memiliki total 12 digital startup yang merupakan 3 startup terbaik dari masing-masing tracks, yaitu yang pertama, Tourism and Creative Economy, Green and Clean Tech, Health and Education, dan juga track terbaru yang gak kalah seru, yang gak kalah menarik lagi, yaitu track Gaming. Ini keren-keren banget, luar biasa sekali ya, NextDevers. Nah, NextDevers seperti yang biasa, aku akan ingatkan kembali semuanya kepada NextDevers bahwa peserta favorit tahun ini tidak hanya ditentukan oleh juri saja, tapi tahun ini NextDevers juga bisa ikut berpartisipasi to choose your favorite digital startup melalui voting. So, how to vote? Nah, itu dia, easy peasy kan, hanya dengan 2 langkah cara mudah. Yang pertama, go to our website di nextdev.co.id, langsung sign up dan juga login ke akun NextDev kamu. Dan yang kedua, then you will find a voting banner dan langsung klik-klik saja ya untuk vote digital startup pilihan kamu. Ingat ya, NextDevers, each day NextDevers punya 1 kesempatan saja untuk voting. Voting akan dibuka sampai tanggal 30 April 2023. Jadi jangan lewatkan kesempatannya di setiap hari, di masing-masing hari untuk memvoting siapa sih yang menjadi digital favorit kalian semuanya. Nah, startup digital dengan vote terbanyak di akhir periode akan menjadi startup digital favorit. So, what are you waiting for? Ajak sebanyak-banyaknya followers, teman, sahabat, keluarga untuk voting langsung jagoan startupnya. Karena startup favorit akan mendapatkan hadiah dari NextDev. Vote digital startup favorit NextDevers sekarang juga. Oke, NextDevers, untuk mengawali kegiatan hari ini, saya ingatkan kembali agar NextDevers dapat memeriksa kembali koneksi jaringan dan juga mempersiapkan sebaik mungkin untuk mengikuti NextDev ExpertTalks kali ini, mulai dari posisi tempat duduk, kemudian juga nanti ketika bertanya ataupun pertanyaan sesi Q&A, untuk mic, video dipersiapkan dengan baik dan jaringannya stabil agar acara hari ini dapat diikuti dengan lancar.
Semua dimulai dari sebuah pertanyaan dan rasa penasaran tentang masa depan. Mengapa harus berhenti jika masih banyak yang mungkin diraih? Untuk Telkomsel, mengapa adalah satu kata yang tidak bisa disepelekan. Mengapa mampu menyambungkan seluruh Indonesia, menjadikan kami digital telco kelas dunia dengan teknologi terdepan dan layanan konektivitas digital tanpa batas. Kami berkomitmen untuk membangun sebuah semesta di mana semua pintu peluang terbuka. Peluang menjelajahi setiap dunia barunya untuk bebas berkreasi dan berkarya bagi nusa dan bangsa. Buka semua peluang, wujudkan potensi tak terbatas dengan Telkomsel. Mengapa tidak? Telkomsel, buka semua peluang.
Berawal dari semangat untuk membangun digital ekosistem Indonesia, membawa kita melihat lebih jauh dan menciptakan dampak sosial bagi Indonesia. Perkembangan zaman yang semakin cepat berubah mengharuskan kita berani mengambil kesempatan dan beradaptasi untuk menjawab berbagai tantangan. Telkomsel sebagai leading digital telco enabler berkomitmen untuk terus mendukung pertumbuhan digital startups Indonesia. Dengan fundamental bisnis yang kuat, akan membawa digital startups Indonesia melesat melampaui ekspektasi. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.
Indonesia siap menghadapi berbagai tantangan.
Selamat datang masa depan. Sebuah masa di mana peluang terbuka lebar dan merata.
Telkomsel sebagai bagian dari BUMN akan terus mendorong kolaborasi lintas industri untuk percepatan inklusi ekonomi digital bangsa yang berkelanjutan.
Selamat datang di sebuah masa di mana insan digital terbaik telah Telkomsel siapkan.
Kita tidak boleh tertinggal dan harus mampu bersaing di segala sektor yang semakin terdigitalisasi.
Satu nusa, satu cita untuk Indonesia Raya.
NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.
Wah, luar biasa sekali ya NextDevers, tetap semangat pagi. Sebelum kita memulai ExpertTalks kali ini, kita akan terlebih dahulu say hey dan juga say hello sama orang-orang yang hebat tentunya di balik program NextDev Academy ini. Halo, selamat siang, selamat datang kepada Mas Hadi Sucipto, Manager CSR Education and Public Community Development Telkomsel, yang juga sekaligus NextDev Project Leader, dan juga ada Mas Gading Yuda, Officer CSR Education and Public Community Development Telkomsel, dan juga ada Mas Abdi Sastrawinata, Head Mentor NextDev Academy dan CEO Panen Maya Academy. Tidak lupa juga, saya juga akan menyapa ini yang luar biasa sekali ya, kita tunggu-tunggu ya di balik orang-orang hebat. Selamat datang juga kepada Miss Khush Topandasani, Associate Director Vertex Ventures, dan juga kepada seluruh 12 digital startup yang hadir pada siang hari ini, yang tentunya sudah siap untuk menerima ilmu dan juga insight baru dari expert speakers hari ini. Baik, NextDevers, untuk memulai acara hari ini langsung saja kita dengarkan opening remarks dari Head Mentor NextDev Academy, Mas Abdi Sastrawinata. Dipersilahkan.
Terima kasih Mbak Megalatu, semangat pagi untuk top 12 NextDevers semua. Semoga senantiasa dalam keadaan sehat selalu ya. Saat ini tidak terasa kita sudah berada di rangkaian ExpertTalks yang ke-6 dari rangkaian ExpertTalks di NextDev Academy. Kali ini ExpertTalks-nya akan mengupas tuntas ya gimana caranya melakukan pitching ide secara tepat, secara powerful, secara efektif kepada investor ya. Sudah hadir bersama kita narasumber yang luar biasa pada hari ini, Miss Khush Topandasani. Selamat datang Miss Khush. Beliau adalah Associate Director di Venture Vertex, sebuah global venture fund yang fokus pada investasi pada bisnis early stages di wilayah Asia dan Amerika. Ini cocok sekali dengan NextDevers semua ya. Harapannya NextDevers bisa dapat banyak insight ya untuk fondasi mempersiapkan pitch deck yang mungkin harus diarahkan untuk bisa menarik perhatian dan minat investor menjelang NextDev Summit kita di waktu yang akan datang. Selamat mengikuti ExpertTalks NextDev Academy. Terima kasih. Selamat siang.
Baik, terima kasih Mas Abdi Sastrawinata untuk opening remarks pada kali ini dan juga terima kasih untuk semangatnya dan juga tentunya ini bisa mentransfer kepada seluruh digital startup hari ini. Terima kasih Mas Abdi. Baik, terima kasih sekali lagi untuk Mas Abdi. Baik, NextDevers, kalau kemarin, ini kan NextDevers sudah mendapatkan insight dari ExpertTalks sebelumnya, ada bisnis model, ada juga marketing strategi, dan juga ada produk. Nah, kalau kali ini tentunya, ini yang pasti ditunggu-tunggu, yang pasti dinanti-nanti seperti apa sih ya materi hari ini, pasti juga menambah semangat nih NextDevers kalau sudah berhubungan dengan kata investment. Nah, kalau sudah ada investment ini tentunya lebih semangat lagi ya untuk acara rangkaian hari ini. Nah, kali ini sudah hadir di tengah-tengah kita ada Miss Khush Topandasani atau yang akrab dipanggil Khush. Khush is the Associate Director Vertex Ventures. Halo Miss Khush, how are you?
Hello, hi Mbak Mega, I'm very good. How are you?
Wow, I'm great. Bagaimana tentunya ini sudah siap Miss Khush untuk memberikan materi mengenai investment kepada seluruh digital startup hari ini?
Yes, 100%.
Oke, 100% Miss Khush sudah ready tentunya untuk digital startup juga sudah harus ready dan juga siap menampung nih ya beberapa insight dan juga ilmu baru dari Miss Khush. Oke, NextDevers tentunya Miss Khush akan sharing ilmu baru, pengalaman dan juga insight untuk NextDevers semuanya yang pastinya akan sangat berdampak besar bagi startup NextDevers. Dan hari ini Miss Khush akan memaparkan materi mengenai investment, how to pitch your ideas to investor. So, please welcome Miss Khush, time is yours.
Okay, thank you Mbak Mega, thank you Mas Abdi as well. Thank you for letting me be part of this event. Hello, top 12 NextDevers. It's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you over here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Khush. I'm actually associate director at Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia and India. What we are is we're actually Temasek's early stage VC arm that does investments in Indonesia, Singapore, India, Thailand, and many other markets in this region. And in terms of sector, kita juga sangat agnostic ya. Jadi anything related to consumer, enterprise, fintech, edtech, agritech, climate tech, even recently, you name it, right? We have done investments in these areas before. Happy to share my thoughts regarding how to pitch ideas to investors, how to split equity at an early stage when you're fundraising, every round, yeah. And also touching a bit about, how do you read a term sheet and what should founders look out for ya. Jadi I will be combining a bit of English and bahasa ya. Jadi kalau ada pertanyaan apa-apa juga, just feel free to reach out. Okay, maybe we can go to the first slide kali ya, which is the first section on how to pitch your startup idea to investors. Next slide. Okay, basically the goal of this particular section is for participants or all you 12 founders to understand how do you create an effective pitch deck for fundraising purposes. Basically your idea might be very great ya, banyak ide tuh, tapi kalau nggak di clearly communicated to the investors, mereka nggak ngerti, dan ujung-ujungnya you will not get funding as well, right? So maybe just giving you a little bit of tips and tricks on how you can pitch effectively to investors in a very concise manner, Kalia. Okay, next slide. So basically, I think there are three main areas that all founders should be aware of when pitching their ideas. Number one is obviously the first table, yeah, which is be clear about your value proposition and problem statement. Problem statementnya tuh apa sih that you have that you're trying to solve, and is this a problem in Indonesia or is this a problem elsewhere, right? Itu you have to be very clear and very specific with the problem statement and your value proposition. Yeah. The second one, which is the table in the middle, is you have to be very articulate when conveying the message. Jadi when you're speaking to investors, harus confident, harus jelas ngomongnya, apa cara penyampaian messagingnya tuh gimana. You have to be very clear, very confident, and you have to keep your tone very engaging. So we'll be deep diving more on these points. And then the third one is that a lot of people sometimes forget because they're so focused on their idea and cara pitchingnya gimana is do a bit of research about your potential investors as well. So basically, these are the umbrella broad themes that I want to discuss further on this topic, right? Jadi, let's quickly go to the first one, yeah. So how do you be clear about your value proposition and problem statement? Number one is you have to identify dulu nih problem statementnya tuh apa, terus what are the pain points that the user has. You can give real life examples if need be, right? Mungkin salah satu contoh that I can give from one of our portfolio ya, back then was in F&B. It's a company called Daily Box yang belum pernah coba bisa coba, ada di Grab and Gojek. It's basically kayak nasi terus ada protein sama ada vegetable. Tapi now they actually have multi brands as well. Jadi ada roti, ada Lumiere which is for cakes and many others ya. Nah, pas itu when we did the investment tuh itu during COVID 2020 and dulu pain point-nya apa? A lot of restaurants kalau mau pesen take away itu tuh lama banget processingnya and they are not available in many areas. Jadi for example if you wanna eat satu restoran gitu ya yang biasanya ada di Mall Grand Indonesia. Kalau mau take away and rumahnya di Sunter atau di Kelapa Gading kan jauh banget ya, jadi susah banget. So back then our thesis was when they operate using say like a more scalable cloud kitchen model, a lot of end users like you and me, kita tuh bisa dapat makanannya tuh sangat cepat and masih panas bahkan. So the way we invest is because mereka tuh ada multi brand sama ada konsep yang bisa membuat mereka tuh scale-nya lebih cepat. So the pain point waktu itu very clear. It was during COVID, people nggak bisa keluar, pada di rumah semua. Terus pada mau pesen makanan yang sampai di rumah tuh masih panas and bisa cepat di-consume. So this was basically one player that we ended up backing back then. Karena mereka scale-nya cepet banget. You can see them di Kelapa Gading ada satu, di Kuningan ada satu, di BSD ada satu, bahkan di luar-luar Jakarta juga ada kayak di Pontianak misalnya. So we invested in that and pain point-nya tuh sangat jelas. Nah, after highlighting misalnya pain points, number two is try to do a market size, right? Do a market study. Market size-nya tuh seberapa besar sih? What is the addressable market? Ini tuh mainnya Indonesia play only atau mungkin bisa ke luar negeri ke depannya? You know, so that will affect like how big your company can grow. So one example that I can share with this is maybe misalnya grocery gitu ya, kan there are many players now out there right now for grocery. Mungkin market size can be like, oh, what's the total grocery market size? Terus habis itu bisa di breakdown yang di modern trade berapa persen, yang di general trade tuh berapa persen. Terus misalnya your company is playing in the modern trade. Modern trade tuh addressable marketnya tuh bisanya cuma di tier 1 cities kayak di Jakarta, Medan, Bandung, Surabaya, atau mungkin bisa keluar juga. Will there be demand for your services outside? Basically, that is basically trying to understand how big your market is and how big can your company grow. Kayak, what's your market share sih at the end of the day? Now, that's two things, right? Now, deep diving a little bit more on problem statement. Misalnya you udah tahu nih problem statementnya apa, and then you have a solution, right? Which is what your company is trying to build. Are customers willing to pay or not for that? Because in today's world or in today's climate where funding is very scarce ya, susah cari duit, you have to ensure that your business model tuh bisa sustainable. What I mean is, jadi nggak bakar duit all the time. Can your product or service to make money from misalnya day one transaction, atau misalnya day one dikasih gratis dulu deh, tapi kedepannya tuh bisa nggak sih bikin duit, your profit margins tuh healthy apa nggak sih? Which actually brings me to my third point, which is business model viability. I will come back to competitors after this, tapi business model viability is something that sangat penting in today's climate ya, especially. Jadi just remember, can your product or service make money? Itu satu. And how do you know that customers you tuh willing or not to pay money? Misalnya mereka misalnya mau subscribe Spotify gitu, 49.000 per bulan. Jadi dari Spotify kan kelihatan, right? Like, okay, willingness to pay for a service like Spotify itu 49,000. Then misalnya you are doing misalnya a podcast or something. Can you charge higher than that? Are customers willing to pay? Because getting a customer to pay for something is very difficult. So make sure that they are willing to pay. And number two is make sure they are willing to pay enough that you can make money juga, that your company or your startup can make money as well. So basically that is more on the business model viability. Yeah. Now, the next one is obviously competitors. Itu sangat penting, right? Knowing who are your competitors in the market, and will your company have a defensible moat? What I mean by defensible moat sih is ada bedanya nggak sih services yang me as a startup founder lagi bikin versus what is available in the market. Jangan sampai you make something and then tiba-tiba like an incumbent or a conglomerate, they can make the same thing, and then udah, right? Your service becomes very irrelevant. So make sure you're aware of who your competitors in the market are and potentially who can be as well. So one example is misalnya you're playing in the grocery space gitu. Your competitor misalnya sekarang it's all your Alfamart, Indomart, etc. Right? They're all offline plays. But one day can they go online? So, and once they go online, will your service be irrelevant? Will they be better and superior? You know, so you can sort of assess where you stand in the market and if there are any white spaces. Yeah, so that's on competitors, and obviously highlighting your value proposition will show how you're different from those competitors, right? Jadi you have them in your radar as well. Now, point number 4 is basically trying to see a time capsule model, right? Are there any business models in other countries that has worked? Kayak gitu. Jadi misalnya you are doing, misalnya there's a company in telemedicine deh di Indonesia, they want to start something in telemedicine. Are there any players in, say, the US or India or maybe Singapore that, you know, have operated, have fundraised well and can make money gitu? So you need to assess your landscape for global benchmarks as well, besides you know, just competitors locally. Another insight that you can get from evaluating business models abroad tuh bisa kelihatan business modelnya tuh jalan apa enggak, karena they may be 3 to 5 years ahead, right? And you can see their footing. Misalnya di US aja company kayak gini yang kayak gue lagi bikin lagi struggle, mereka nggak bisa bikin money even though udah operate dari 2018 2019 sampai sekarang nggak bisa make money. Do you think it can make money for your startup in this part of the world? Maybe not, right? So it's better to identify these business models early on rather than you suffer behind, right? Because for now, gone are the days when investors will you know, just put in money without seeing business model or unit economics-nya tuh negative gross margin misalnya cuma 1%. Ya gimana? How will you cover all your rent and office expenses and your other variable and fixed costs, right? Susah. Now investors are a bit more aware, and you need to basically ensure that your business model tuh bisa sustain gitu in the long term. Okay, and then number 5, right, is you have to be ready for when VCs ask you, oh, projections for the next 1 to 3 years tuh bagaimana, like how much revenue top line are you gonna make? Tapi instead of liatin top line revenue growth-nya, mereka bakal liatin bottom line-nya juga, which is lu lagi grow ke atas tapi bleeding money nggak di bawah. Like every time your revenue naik, cost lu tambah naik juga. So that one will not work. Nowadays, they will try to ask for these terms called path to profitability. If you can see my point 5 on the left table, right? Path to profitability is, okay, misalnya sekarang you have an idea and you want to experiment or pilot run it. Okay, fine. Tapi when can you be profitable? Pasti ada timeline-nya kan. Like misalnya, okay, now I want to build brand loyalty or stickiness gitu ya, biar customers come back pakai terus. Jadi harganya I turunin dulu, or I give a lot of promotions, discounts. That's fine. Tapi will that loyal base come back again once you start charging, once you start cutting down the burn and you know, your promotions, your discounts, etc. Will they come back? That is when you basically need to forecast in the next 1 to 3 years. Jadi misalnya you put, okay, 1 year will be burning money. You know, just to acquire a lot of customers and users. Tapi for next year, we will not be spending that much lagi. We will be trying to just retain them gitu. And you know, as the company scales, we will get economies of scale. Harga ini bakal lebih turun. Jadi we can, and our gross profit margins bakal stable misalnya. Then we can be profitable gitu on EBITDA basis misalnya. So something like that is something that we investors nowadays are looking for, because market stuff, it's a recession, So we're deploying our funds also very wisely. So that's basically on the value proposition and problem statement side. Now in the middle table, it's more about your interpersonal skills ya. Cara untuk communicate the many ideas and creative ideas you have to the investors. So the first point that I always share with everyone is obviously you have to be very clear and concise with delivering a pitch ya. Jadi jangan muter gitu. Like you're talking about one thing and then you're talking about another thing, but you're talking about the one thing again. Jadi muter. Just go straight to the point. You know, you maintain eye contact with the investors. Keep your tone engaging. Jangan monotonous ya. And the worst thing that is a turn off for investors, especially during Zoom meetings, is if a founder just reads off a script. That one is a no-no. Jadi you have to know your business. You have to know the flow of your presentation well. And just be very calm, be very clear and concise when delivering the pitch. Do not read off a script. The third point is obviously when you are giving a presentation, can sometimes you can just be in that flow of thought where you do not pause. So maybe after every section, misalnya abis ngomongin market size, and then nextnya ke problem statement, maybe take a pause first, you know, like, okay, let me take a pause and ask the investors if you guys have any questions before transitioning to the other sections. Number 4 is, I think I mentioned it earlier, do not beat around the bush, just go straight to the point. And number 5 actually is one that I particularly encourage founders is for your first meeting with investors, you don't have to go full into details, you know, you can keep the presentation to say 20 minutes or 25 minutes for a first meeting and don't need to overload them with too much information. Because what VCs typically do is after a first introductory call, they will do their own homework, obviously, and they will basically obviously request for many other information that may not be there, right? But what I'm trying to get at here is you don't need to waste your time going very deep into details to a VC that may not even be interested. So you speak to them first for the first time. And then if they're interested, it will be followed on by multiple calls, 100%. And also a request of data room. So basically, one trick is you can tell them, okay, this is basically an introductory deck, you know, if you're interested to learn more. We have a data room prepared where, you know, we can show you our traction, our progress, our detailed pitch deck, so on and so forth, right? You can keep that for the second meeting, so you don't overload investors with too much information on the first introduction or first pitching day. So that's basically point number 2, which is be articulate when conveying your message or your idea. Now, the third point that a lot of founders typically like to forget or miss, right, is doing a research about their potential investors. So you can do a lot of research about investors ahead of your meetings. Can they be a good fit? Jadi for VCs, we normally put the term due diligence on founders. We do due diligence on your business, on the founding team, etc. Similarly, as founders, you can do a due diligence on your investors as well. So for example, you want to talk to Vertex next week, you want to pitch to Vertex next week, right? You can do a little bit of research on what Vertex is. Now, the first easy step is just Google Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia, India, misalnya. Then you will see what are the portfolios under the fund, how big is the fund size, fundnya tuh asalnya dari mana, what are their investments. You can see you know, what kind of fund and will they be a good fit for your business or not. And another tip I like to give founders is you can see if they have any portfolios abroad that could be very similar to what you're building in Indo gitu. Jadi you can draw a lot of learnings and knowledge transfer kan. Misalnya, oh ini ada misalnya Vertex ada podcast company di India namanya Kuku FM. Oh, I want to do something in the podcast in Indo. Maybe I can learn from the Kuku FM gitu. Jadi Vertex would be very good investor karena udah ada pengalaman kan with the India portfolio. Then there could be a lot of knowledge transfer. So that's one. Number 2 is sort and prioritize, right? Jadi misalnya it depends on the stage of your company at this point. Are you just fresh starting out, masih ideation stage, atau udah ada product market fit and then you want to raise your seed funding or Series A, Series B and so on, right? Jadi you can do a mapping of your investors berdasarkan what kind of investors are they sih. Misalnya Vertex Ventures, kita tuh biasanya we can do investments dari seed to Series B, gitu. Ticket size between $1 to $7 million. Jadi you can do a bit of research on what other VCs are there, and mereka punya preferred ticket size tuh berapa, and mereka biasanya tuh masuk di round mana. There's no point you talk to, misalnya your company is at seed stage, and then you talk to a Series B investor. Ya, it's a long shot, right? Yang ada, you're just obviously building relationship from early on. Tapi if you need money immediately, yeah, you cannot count on that VC karena mereka masuknya masih Series B, whereas you're still in seed stage, right? So that kind of sorting and prioritizing would help and make your fundraising process a lot more efficient as well, ya. Daripada you speak to 15 VCs and then semuanya kayak requirements-nya beda-beda, and then you sendiri will be boggled up. And I know you don't have a lot of resources kan, misalnya masih early stage. Now point 3 is basically, like I mentioned, right? Explore the fund prior investments and highlight that you want to collaborate or want to learn from them. So when you are prepared and you're speaking to an investor, you can say that, oh yeah, Vertex Ventures, I've learned a lot about your fund, and we're trying to build something similar to your portfolio in India. That we would like to learn more from them, and that's why we think Vertex would be a good partner for us. Okay, gitu. And then the fourth point is more on the internal team, yeah. As fast as you can, hire a corporate development team to handle investor relations and preparation of data room. Jadi misalnya you are pitching to investors, udah siapin everything biar you don't waste a lot of time in the tech talk with the investors. Mereka bakal minta so much data, don't ask. There's a lot of data that is required. And the more you anticipate them in advance, the better it is for your fundraise process to be smoother and quicker. Kalau nggak lama banget tektokannya, misalnya they want this data, belum ada, then you need to look for it, you need to make it into a presentation, Excel, modeling, etc. So it's better to prepare a data room in advance. Jadi once an investor asks like, oh, okay, can I get access to your data room? Everything is there. More legal documents, more cap table, more financial projections, more historical projections, more traction, key matrix, semuanya udah di dalam. And obviously as founder, if you're especially a single founder, this will be your core focus of fundraising while your other team members execute. If you guys have multiple co-founders, then you can divide the work, which is easier. But one tip that I always would encourage is hire a corporate development team. Jadi there's satu PIC yang bisa urusin whatever the investor wants without eating into your product teams or your other teams, biar bandwidth-nya kejaga. Yeah, so basically this is in a nutshell on how to pitch a startup idea to investors. Maybe we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so the next slide or the next section, if I may, is basically how to split equity of your startup. Basically, the objective of this particular section is for all of you participants to understand how do you split the equity fairly. And basically, after the guidance that I'm about to share, you can probably just see which stage of the company you're at, and then how do you bagi your equity with misalnya internal team, ada co-founders, atau mau kasih ESOP allocation. ESOP is employee stock options for your teams, yeah. And then on the external side, obviously, if you have an external investor or an institutional investor, then you can obviously have a bit of dilution for them, right? And how much to dilute at each stage of the fundraise. Next slide. Yeah. So basically, how to split equity of your startup can be divided into two main categories, right? One is internal team. Jadi, if you see the picture in the middle, this is a scenario where there's a company with 3 co-founders. Misalnya ada founder A, ada founder B, ada founder C. Yeah? Founder A is good at engineering sales. Founder B is good as a CEO and has a bit of tech background. And then founder C misalnya has VC experience and has all the network, right? So all this example is basically where all the founders are complementary in nature. Jadi some are strong in tech, satu leadership and CEO, satu lagi VC experience, jadi ada network ya. So maybe we go to the internal side first. On the left is How to split the equity could be based on a few factors, right? Number one, misalnya for your internal team, kebayang ya, whose idea is the backbone of the company? Kayak siapa sih yang punya ide? Is it like one person? Is it two people? And then number two is how much are they committed to serving the company full time? Karena kan ada some founders yang sleeping founders juga kan, sleeping investors gitu misalnya. Ada yang part time gitu, ada yang masih working somewhere else, ada yang full time committed. And then what are the future value contributions that these people may have, right? Misalnya going down the line ada yang bisa buka business development, punya koneksi ke misalnya ke klien-klien gitu. Another one is very good at hiring misalnya. Terus another one very good at tech and building a tech team misalnya di India or di Vietnam atau di Indonesia, right? What are their commitments and their future value contributions? You can think of that. Number three is obviously responsibilities and duties, right? Misalnya there's a CEO role, they're helming everything. Itu maybe bisa diallocate more shares than the other co-founders misalnya. And then number four is obviously business and domain expertise, right? Misalnya you're operating in the climate tech space for decarbonization misalnya. Who has access to say regulatory bodies, right? Who has access to project developers? Siapa sih yang punya akses ke landowners yang bisa bikin carbon project gitu? Who has access to consultants misalnya in the sustainability angle? All that will be more value adding to the overall function of the business, right? And obviously number five is capital invested. Who's putting a lot of money into the company in the initial stages, right, when building? So that's how these are some of the factors you can consider when deciding how to split the equity of your startup ya. Jadi kasih contoh, back then there's no right or wrong answer ya. Jadi back then misalnya Microsoft co-founders ada Bill Gates and Paul Allen, their split back then kalau nggak salah was like about 64% to 36% gitu. On the other hand, Google punya co-founders back then ada Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they were on a 50-50 split gitu. Jadi there's no right or wrong answer as long as you consider the factors on the left hand side. Jadi whatever effort or hard work put in, it matches the reward gitu. That's basically deciding on the internal side ya. Now on the external investor side, again I think it relates to the stage of company you're in now ya. Tapi what I can share from speaking to a lot of founders, apalagi because Vertex is an early stage investor kan, typically we like the investors gain a lot of comfort in knowing that the founders have the largest stake in the company, apalagi kalau masih di seed and series A ya. Jadi obviously more than 50% lah harus masih dipegang founders, mau satu founder lah, mau dua founder lah, terserah. Yang penting founders have a lot of stake karena they have a lot of they'll ensure the investors that the founders have skin in the game. Jadi misalnya when everything's going well kan everything is okay gitu. Tapi when things are in a downturn, will the founder, put his life and stake to save the company? Misalnya dia punya stake cuman 10% atau 5% ya apa artinya gitu. They're not gonna fight if it's a downturn. They can just quit and leave and then start something else gitu, or go back to a regular job, right? So basically, investors gain a lot of comfort knowing that founders have a sizable stake at early stage gitu. Number two is obviously balancing out valuation expectation and the dilution. Jadi misalnya you are seed, you're raising your seed round gitu ya, and then founders, if you can see the table below in white, you can see that biasanya during the founding stage kan founders own 80%. Biasanya 100% lah, obviously founders own 100%, tapi then you allocate about 20% for your ESOP. ESOP is basically shares that you give your employees with targets gitu. And ada vesting periodnya biasanya bisa 4 years atau 5 years gitu. Ada vesting periodnya tiap tahun, tied to their performance, right? And then when you come to seed investing, then you can maybe dilute about 10 to 15% or even 20% even to make room for investors or institutional investors atau angel investors. Itu they can bring value, right? Could be strategics as well. Jadi founders will own about 64% ya kalau seed. Now, as you move up the ladder, okay, Series A, Series B, Series C, your dilution could be higher or lower depending on how much you're trying to raise, how much is your growth. If your company is doing very well, yeah, there's like a J curve revenue, then maybe you can dilute dikit aja, ngapain dilute banyak-banyak, compared to the amount that you're fundraising. So this is basically just general terms, yeah. There's no like right or wrong answer again, depending on the dilution each round, yeah. What I can suggest is, misalnya there is, say, an investor trying to come in at your seed stage round, and then they're like, oh, we will give you $2 million, tapi you give us 50% of the company, or whatever, 10 million, give us 50% of the company. Like, that one is something that I wouldn't encourage, because one thing you lose during this entire process is control. Usually founders want to have control over their business, right, as much as they can. And if you sell half your business away, it's very hard to get that kind of control, because you'll have board members, and then dikit-dikit you'll have to do minta approval from the board, which we'll discuss in the next section, yeah, in the term sheet side. Jadi in terms of external investors, I think jaga the dilution. Misalnya angel seed round dilution could be about 10 to 15%. Series A usually typically 20-30%. Series B and above about 20-30%, or even lesser, right, if the company is growing well and can command a higher valuation. Another thing to note about splitting equity is also the number of board members you want to have. Jadi the more you split the equity and the more institutional investors you have, or third-party investors, a lot of them will ask for a board seat. Obviously founder, because you guys are majority stake-wise, pasti will be on the board seat. Tapi then, if misalnya every investor asks for a board seat, it'll be very hard to manage all of the expectations, because there'll be a lot of things where you need board consensus to move forward. Jadi nggak bisa seenaknya, oh founder maunya kayak gini ya, bisa jalan, bisa green light gitu. It's very hard if you already have third-party investors. You have to get their buy-in as well. And then lebih kompleks lagi kalau boardnya dysfunctional, which means satu board member nggak gitu suka with the direction of the other board member. Then you have a lot of conflict management and stakeholder management to do, in addition to your fundraise or your business performance kan. Because when you're fundraising, your business performance does not stop. You still have to perform and deliver your numbers and your milestones, right, to the investors. But if you are, if your bandwidth is taken so much for fundraising and for managing your board members, then it's a little bit difficult, right, to manage two things at once. So yeah, that's basically just a gist on how to split equity of your startup. There's no right or wrong answer, but this is just general guidance on how to take it forward. Yeah, next slide. Okay, this is basically a lot of fun. Fun for me, but maybe for all of you, it's like, oh, it's a lot of documentation. You have to read a lot of things and understand a lot of terms. Basically, what is a term sheet, right? Term sheet is basically a document that basically is non-binding. Okay, remember that word. It's non-binding, and it basically just kayak orang lagi PDKT, lagi mau pacaran gitu ya. So then they give you like early signs that, okay, I want to explore further with your company because I really like it, misalnya. So here are some agreements between the investor and the startup on, misalnya, I as an investor decide to invest in you, termsnya tuh bakal begini loh. Tapi it's not set in stone ya. Jadi misalnya Vertex nih udah kasih term sheet ke one of you guys, right? One of the founder. It doesn't mean that, oh ini pasti udah jadi, like udah pacaran tapi udah ready married gitu ya. It's not the case. So term sheets are non-binding. It just basically is like it's similar to a letter of intent that sets out the key terms of a deal. Misalnya, how much does Vertex want to put in? How much does other investors want to put in? How much will your startup be worth? What's your pre-money valuation? Who will be on the board seat? gitu-gitu, so there's a lot of governance that goes under a term sheet as well, and it's just a process of negotiation, okay, between the founder and a VC, that nanti kalau misalnya everything goes well, udah ada due diligence dan lain-lain, it will result in even a longer set of legal documents to detail their investment. So term sheet is basically a teaser lah of what kind of terms the VC wants in order to invest in your startup. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so basically what you need or what founders need to know about term sheet, number one, it's just the first step for any VC to express intent to invest in your company. And it is not binding, okay? So founders must not think that misalnya a term sheet udah dikasih nih, means the VC will invest. Belum tentu. So there will be a lot of due diligence work post the term sheet stage, and a formal decision too will only come later after all the requirements are satisfied. So ingat ya, term sheet is not binding, and masih ada a lot of things to clear for a VC in order to invest in the company, like due diligence, and so on and so forth. Nah, before a term sheet is issued, biasanya tuh suka ada negotiation phase. Jadi negotiationnya tuh apa, like, okay, Vertex, kita lagi fundraise tuh sebenarnya $2 million. Terus kita cuman mau dilute misalnya 10% of equity ya, kita nggak mau kasih banyak-banyak gitu. So then your pre-money valuation tuh automatically udah very high. And then the VC can be like, okay, misalnya you mau dilute cuma 10%. Your post-money 20 million. Your pre-money 18 million. Your company performance tuh gimana sekarang? Am I willing to pay $18 million pre-money valuation for a company at your stage? Nah, itu bisa banyak tektokan to basically align on, a certain pre-money valuation or valuation entry multiple, we call it for VC ya. Itu biasanya dinego dulu, and then after that baru there will be due diligence work done. Now, for some VCs, due diligence could be parallel nih. They could do it before even issuing the term sheet. Jadi misalnya, there have been cases for even some of our portfolios where Vertex does the due diligence duluan. We speak to the suppliers, we speak to the customers, we speak to the other investors, we do background checks on the founders. Itu biasanya we do the heavy lifting di awal, sebelum kasih term sheet. Jadi misalnya udah kasih term sheet setelah due diligence, then you can be a bit more tenang, like, okay, this founders, this VC has already done due diligence on us. They spend so much time on us, and they're giving us a term sheet. Okay, that's a good thing. Nah, the other flip side is ada yang kasih term sheet duluan. Jadi kan your expectations sudah naik tuh. Terus they do a lot of due diligence, then they find that they're not comfortable to underwrite that kind of risk. Misalnya ada some risk they identify their due diligence. Ya bisa aja they retract back the term sheet. Jadi nggak jadi invest. Itu bisa banget. So, and there have been a few cases where that has happened. So yeah, that's just a one-on-one on term sheet and the entire process on its own. Yeah. Now, point number 2, term sheets they're generally less complex if it comes to early stage. Misalnya dari angel investor, dari seed investor, Series A investment, itu tuh relatively straightforward. There are certain terms that are very common, and it will be used gitu. Jadi it's common and jarang ada terms yang very predatory or very complex gitu, versus a late stage or private equity level. Itu lebih way the deal construct could be very, very complicated as well, yeah. So need to learn a lot more detailed if you're dealing with a late stage or private equity level kind of investors. Number 3 is basically just a refresher, right? Basically, when founders start a company, the shares that they own are called ordinary shares. And usually when a third-party investor usually comes in, their class of shares tuh bakal beda. It'll be called preferred stocks or preferred shares, which usually has different sets of terms and benefits. Jadi misalnya in the hierarchy ya, misalnya there's a liquidation event, or misalnya your company acquire another player gitu for $100 million. Yang bakal ke payout duluan tuh is the preferred stockholders dulu, baru ordinary. Obviously, if you have debt or misalnya ambil venture debt ya, ambil loan facility gitu, those people will be paid out first. And then second will be the preferred shareholders or stockholders, and then the third baru the ordinary shareholders. So basically, itu just an insight aja kalau the class of shares that investors pegang usually is preferred stocks, not ordinary. Obviously, some of them ada campur if they buy secondaries and so on and so forth, and not just do primary, then that would be a combination. Tapi kebanyakan it's preferred stocks which have a higher hierarchy of payout during a liquidation event and different sets of terms and benefits. That's sort of tied to it. Number 4 is you must remember that eventually your investor too will have a very fundamental role in the development of your company. Jadi there could be some investors that are very passive. Okay, gue masukin $2 million saja, or $1 million, or 500,000 even. Terus I'll stay very silent, right? Tapi there are a lot more investors, especially in the Series A stage atau Series B stage. Mereka tuh will be very involved in almost your key strategic milestones, decision making, hiring employees even, and a lot of approvals. Jadi my suggestion is when you're at an early stage, give up the board seats wisely. You don't want a dysfunctional board, and the lesser the board members in early stage, the easier decision making will be. Jadi I give you an example usually for protective provision biasanya tuh ada kayak, okay, for any expenses above say $50,000 harus minta approval of the board. Now, 50,000 may be a big number, tapi imagine if your threshold is 10,000, everything above $10,000 harus ada board approval. Itu kan ribet banget ya. You have to always go to your board one by one, and then you have to explain them why you need this, why you need that, and then you have to get their green light. Baru you can move on, right? So that makes your decision making a lot slower because you're dependent on board approval for every small matter, right? And like I mentioned earlier, if your board is not on the same page as you or your other investor, then managing that entire dynamics could be a little bit complex. So just remember, in the earlier stage, everybody will ask for a board seat, 100%. But you will have to prioritize on, which shareholder that you value the most can get the board seat at this stage, right? It could be depending on the strategic that they bring, their connections, the money that they put in, or your working relationship with them, right? Whichever you find more comfortable, you have them on the board. And then for the other investors, you can tell them, okay, you don't need to be on the board of director, but you can be a board observer. Board observer means mereka tuh dapat report that you send to your board, but they don't have voting power. Jadi mereka nggak bisa vote. So basically that's number 4. Number 5 is protective provisions, right, that I touched upon briefly. They are basically terms that allow these preferred shareholders to veto or block certain corporate actions. Jadi misalnya you find a buyer of your company gitu, you want to exit, ada yang mau beli your company for $40 million. But there could be a lot of provisions that can let your majority shareholders or majority investors to block this because this is a major corporate action kan. Jadi bisa aja diblok kalau ada yang nggak suka with that deal because they're not making money or whatever reason, right? So basically you negotiate wisely, and just find the right balance or investors that you work with well to be on your board, and you can negotiate the protective provision as well. Jadi misalnya for every $10,000 you must seek the VC approval, right, or board approval. Maybe you can increase that threshold. You can give an explanation that $10,000, I'll be disturbing you so much. The frequency is very often, and we need to spend 10,000 for this. Maybe we can increase the threshold to 50,000 for really strategic investments or something. Then only we seek approval. Number 6 is more on liquidation preference. So liquidation preference is basically when there's an event of liquidation or exit, right? How much will investors make back? Jadi misalnya Vertex puts in $2 million in your company. Kalau ada 1x liquidation preference, kita at least harus make back that $2 million. Tapi if there is certain terms, misalnya from the investors, if they think that, oh, I'm putting 2 million, tapi kayaknya risky banget sih my investment, they can ask for 2x liquidation preference. Jadi kalau 2x misalnya a VC puts in $2 million, they can get back $4 million. 2x of their investment cost, right? So which actually guarantees that investors get double their money back before the common classes of stock or ordinary shareholders can receive anything. So for liquidation preference, I think usually for early stage the terms are pretty much set. It's usually at 1x participating or non-participating. Depends on your negotiation, but I think the norm nowadays is 1x liquidation preference, non-participating. And if you guys notice in your term sheet, there's like a 6x liquidation preference or 4.5x liquidation preference, then definitely it's something that you should call out, and it's a red flag as well, because eventually what is the investor investing in you for? Because if they're increasing their liquidation preference, means they don't have a lot of faith in the business or in the founders or in both, right? So basically, you can call that out as well. If the liquidation preference number is not 1x. If it's 1x, then it's pretty ordinary, it's pretty standard. We use that in our term sheets as well, depending on obviously the stage of investment that you're coming in at, yeah, and the risk factor as well. So liquidation preference tuh biasanya dimainin tuh when they see like the investment tuh risky or not, yeah. So the less risky it is, it could be 1x. The riskier it gets, it could be higher, like 2x, 3x, because they want to make their money back. So yeah, that's on liquidation preference. And the last point that I think would be more of an advice, yeah, to all founders now. Sekarang zamannya tuh udah bukan kayak 2020 or 2021 where if you start a company, you can say like, oh, I'm starting out, masih ideation stage, belum ada revenue. I want to raise at a $10 million pre-money valuation. Padahal belum ada apa-apa. Back then in 2020 and 2021, it could still get through. Tapi in today's climate, it's very tough because the investors need to see the value of where their money is going and what returns they can make out of it. And for that, it will highly, highly depend on the business performance, again, your business model viability, how big is your market, can you expand beyond Indonesia, or if you want to focus on Indo only, is it just tier 1 proposition, or bisa di-expand ke tier 2, tier 3, who are your buyers, do they have willingness to pay? In Indonesia, as a market, willingness to pay is something that is constantly challenged, yeah. Because there are a lot of things where customers like it, but they are not willing to pay. The minute you charge them, kayak susah. There's a lot of churn. So basically, you need to see all of these factors as well. And coming back to the fact that we're living in a different era, yeah, now. Interest rates are also very high. Cost of funds are very expensive. Jadi a term sheet giving the highest valuation may not necessarily be the best one. Because what happens is, misalnya you get a term sheet today from VCA gitu ya. Mereka mau kasih, oh ya, your pre-money valuation $10 million, padahal belum ada apa-apa ya, belum ada revenue, belum ada product. And then, okay, you take it misalnya gitu, $10 million. You have a lot of pressure as a founder to prove your business performance karena they're already paying a premium, right, for your company. So their expectations on your business performance would be very, very high as well. And if founders cannot deliver, then it will be very, very stressful for you. And in your subsequent fundraise, misalnya itu the Series A ya, 10 million pre-money. Terus ternyata 1 year later you hit Series B, terus ternyata your revenue traction belum naik, your traction tuh belum naik as fast as it should ya. Then next roundnya you mau di-value berapa? Your next investor will be like, your company udah kemahalan, now aja udah 10 million and you have nothing. I'm only ready to pay 8 million karena your revenue cuma sekian. The multiple public comps sekarang tuh cuma berapa X revenue. Jadi belum nutut gitu. Your company, that's what happens when your company is priced or your valuation is going higher than your business performance. Jadi growth-nya tuh harus di-maintain ya. Jadi carilah valuation yang wajar. Misalnya you do your public comps, right? Misalnya apa tuh F&B. Nowadays, misalnya, you can see Pizza Hut, Starbucks, KFC, their value tuh berapa? Misalnya, I give a random number, 1x revenue gitu, valuation-nya. So then kira-kira sendiri, like if I'm starting an F&B startup, okay, misalnya the difference with my startup with Pizza Hut is I can scale quicker. My bottom line bisa profitable lebih cepat. My outlet EBITDA, four-wall EBITDA can be positive very quickly gitu ya. And the payback period for each of my outlet tuh bisa lebih cepat than a Pizza Hut or Starbucks. Okay, sure, I will not pay 1x revenue, maybe multiple valuation multiple-nya 2x revenue. Misalnya revenue-nya last year $1 juta, kali 2 aja, $2 million, that's your pre-money valuation. Don't ask for like a $10 million pre-money valuation when revenue-nya masih 1 juta, itu kayak 10x EV to sales, right? Which is very, very expensive. And your public comps don't even support that. Jadi bakal susah di belakang gitu if you raise at a very high valuation in the beginning. Tapi then once you run out of money apalagi, and then you're desperate to fundraise your next round, it's very hard to get your next stage funding with favorable terms. And if you do a down round, next roundnya your existing investor yang bakal marah. Like, oh my God, we already invest $10 million pre-money, sekarang masa next roundnya 8 million sih? Then there's a lot more pressure on the founders because otherwise they get diluted and so on and so forth. Right? And it doesn't give a good signal for the business at all. So yeah, those are basically some things to note about, say, term sheet, about how to split your equity and how to pitch to investors. One quote from me at the end of the day, right? I think the ultimate goal of a startup is to have a viable business model that can scale with consistent VC funding, right? And eventually no funding at all, because we expect the companies to turn profitable eventually. In this climate, we really look out for sustainable business models and not just one that can grow because they're burning money to acquire customers or to retain customers. And once you take all of those gimmick or perks out, then the growth stagnates, right? It's a fad. It's not sustainable. So that's basically my main key takeaway. And the other one is obviously choose the right VC that can be a long-term investment partner. You can think of them as your thinking partners as well, right, to the founders, and make sure that you can trust them and you share the same values. Yeah. I think that's all for my presentation. Yeah, I think there's an assignment reference here, maybe from the NextDev Academy team. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Khush, for your presentation. So, Miss Khush, tadi ada beberapa topik. Ada 3 topik ya, 3 main topic, how to pitch your startup idea to investor. Dan yang kedua adalah how to split equity of your startup from internal team and then external investor. Dan juga yang ketiga ini adalah what founders need to know about term sheet. Nah, tadi ada beberapa hal digital startup yang tentunya ini menarik sekali. Bagaimana sih harus menjelaskan dan juga menyampaikan dengan baik mengenai ideas, kemudian business model to investor, straight to the point ya, bisa eye contact juga ya Miss Khush, kemudian juga keep tone and engaging seperti apa sih, dan juga yang terpenting adalah percaya diri untuk menyampaikan ide dan juga bisnis modal ke investor. Nah, kalau misalnya sudah menyampaikan juga tentunya ke investor dan juga bisa pause and ask kepada investor, ada pertanyaan nggak sih ya before transition to other section, jangan terlalu detail informasinya supaya agar lebih penasaran lagi dan juga lebih menarik lagi ya di awal meeting. Mungkin juga bisa ke second meeting lebih detail lagi. Dan terutama adalah do research your potential investor seperti apa sih. Dan juga tadi juga dijelaskan menarik sekali mengenai term sheet dari Miss Khush. Dan sebenarnya apa sih term sheet ini? Ini merupakan dokumen yang juga menguraikan mengenai persyaratan seperti apa, kemudian perjanjian seperti apa. Tapi ini it's not binding, hanya bagaimana menjalankan seperti mirip-mirip nota kesepahaman gitu ya. Nah, untuk itu kita akan memasuki sesi Q&A dan tentunya ini juga menjadi lebih paham lagi ya NextDevers ya. Gimana sudah kebayang harus gimana sih kalau ketemu dengan investor nanti? Kini NextDevers juga bisa lebih paham mengenai strategi yang bisa NextDevers terapkan waktu NextDevers approach the investor pastinya ya. Untuk itu langsung saja kita akan memasuki sesi diskusi. Dipersiapkan dengan baik untuk sesi Q&A ini segala pertanyaan dari NextDevers semuanya ke Miss Khush.
Telkomsel sebagai bagian dari BUMN akan terus mendorong kolaborasi lintas industri untuk percepatan inklusi ekonomi digital bangsa yang berkelanjutan.
Kita tidak boleh tertinggal dan harus mampu bersaing di segala sektor yang semakin terdigitalisasi.
Satu nusa, satu cita untuk Indonesia Raya.
NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.
Semangat pagi. Saatnya kita akan memasuki sesi Q&A. Terima kasih sekali lagi untuk Miss Khush sudah memberikan materi yang luar biasa, how to pitch your startup ideas to investor. Nah, untuk NextDevers yang ingin bertanya secara langsung, silahkan raise hand. Pada fitur yang tersedia, saya akan membantu untuk menyebutkan namanya dan juga memberikan kesempatan untuk menyalakan mic dan juga video agar dapat bertanya secara langsung kepada Miss Khush hari ini ya. Oke, untuk yang pertama saya memberikan kesempatan kepada Mbak Zulfa Fauzia dari FIA. Terima kasih. Silakan untuk pertanyaannya kepada Miss Khush.
Thank you. Ini bagus banget informasinya. Banyak para founder yang karena kita tidak tahu prosesnya, akhirnya kita lost di tengah jalan dan kita udah rekrut banyak orang gitu ya. I'm so appreciate for your information, Kak Khush. So, pertanyaan aku adalah saat term sheet itu, apakah kita juga boleh mengajukan challenge yang sama kepada investor terkait bagaimana contribute kinerjanya dia, performance kinerjanya dia gitu loh, selama term sheet itu gitu. Karena kan kalau dari sisi dia kan melihat performance-nya kita ya gitu kan. Nah, kita pun juga sama gitu. This is, are you sure fit with me gitu kan, and everything-nya gitu. Nah, itu apakah boleh? Yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua, ini secara personal, boleh nggak di luar dari NextDev ini kita berdiskusi dengan Kak Khush, kemudian lebih kepada nanya-nanya sih Kak, current condition of our startup kita, kemudian proses-prosesnya, karena in this game where I think sometimes very dangerous, tapi juga harus benar-benar berhati-hati gitu ya. So, just it for my question. Thank you so much Kak.
Baik, terima kasih Mbak Fauzia dari FIA, Miss Khush, Devers Education. Yang pertama adalah mengenai term sheet dan juga yang kedua adalah secara personal Miss Khush ini. Apakah bisa berdiskusi lebih dalam lagi dengan Miss Khush? Silakan untuk dijawab Miss Khush.
Oke, yang kedua dulu ya, jawabannya boleh. boleh. You can get my contact. We can chat over coffee. Atau mau Zoom call, terserah bebas kok. I am located in Jakarta, jadi bisa. Happy to share my insights as well. Untuk yang first one, right? If you want to understand misalnya how the VCs work, kan VCs do due diligence on you guys, right? And you want to do the exact same other way around, right? One way to do it secara halus ya, is to ask them, apa sih value add yang VC Anda tuh bisa kontribusi to our startup gitu. So that's a question that we usually get as well from some of the founders, kayak, oh Vertex misalnya, we are operating in this space, what is some of the value add that you can give us? It could be, then obviously my answer would be, as an investor, obviously we have a network of funds, we have LPs, we have portfolios in other countries yang mungkin similar to you guys, jadi bisa knowledge transfer, we can connect you to future investors for your next round fundraisers, and obviously some of the VCs can be like bisa bantuin for BD, business development, partnerships, and also hiring your senior members, because I have personally helped a lot of companies even in their hiring. and connecting them buat partnership, collabs, kayak gitu-gitu. So definitely, yes, you can ask the VC on what kind of value add can you bring, gitu. There's not so much on financials that you can ask a VC. I think the only thing you can ask a VC is how big is your fund. Tapi it doesn't really matter how big or small it is, as long as they're willing to invest in you. The more important thing is the value creation and value add that they can bring. And that's something that you can ask, definitely, 100%.
Oke, terima kasih Miss Khush untuk jawabannya. Gimana Mbak Zulfa, sudah cukup tuh jawaban dari Miss Khush?
Very enough.
Oke, terima kasih Mbak Zulfa Fauzia dari FYI. Sukses selalu ya. Baik, selanjutnya untuk kesempatan kedua saya berikan kepada Mas Derivato dari MyEco. Silahkan untuk memberikan pertanyaannya kepada Miss Khush.
Okay, thank you for the insight. It's very useful for my startup. If we berpatokan with the other business, this first question, I have two questions. First question is, if we berpatokan with the others business with the business model in the other country that has worked, apakah itu menjamin juga kesuksesan business model itu running in Indonesia? Because many global startup or business model start in Indonesia with their business model, but they gagal gitu. Kenapa itu jadi patokan? Pertama itu. Yang kedua, mungkin itu juga jadi kayak faktor multiple-nya juga ya. Terus yang kedua, pertanyaannya adalah about the internal team equity tadi ya. In the slide there is 5 point for menilai how many equity for internal team, but how to menentukan masing-masing kelebihan founder itu bernilai berapa persen equity for masing-masing founder idealnya itu.
Okay, maybe the first one first ya. Global benchmark or patokan kan like you mentioned for a startup operating elsewhere, itu tuh gives you a fast forward glimpse of what your company can look like. Jadi it gives you misalnya dulu mulainya kayak gini, sekarang udah jadi kayak gini. Jadi you kebayang tuh nggak, like what your company can potentially evolve to become, right? And then there are some yang ada learnings juga. Jadi misalnya what was very helpful is misalnya there's a company in India nih, mereka lagi do some services, tapi mereka tuh nggak pernah bisa charge revenue, nggak pernah bisa make revenue. Padahal valuation-nya tuh udah gila-gilaan naiknya. Sampai sekarang the company tuh masih struggling. Jadi it doesn't mean that the company valuation-nya naik terus jadi hot deal banget, tapi ujung-ujungnya kalau nggak bisa bikin duit ya pasti collapse juga ujung-ujungnya. So then you already know dari cerita case study itu that if you want to start something like that, ujung-ujungnya tuh nggak bakal kemana-mana. Jadi it's a good learning lesson in advance daripada you already spend time and resources making that, and then ujung-ujungnya udah kelihatan nggak bakal jalan, siapa yang bakal mau invest, right? And we are seeing some companies like that. Misalnya di luar negeri tuh bener-bener nggak jalan. Di Indo ada yang mau coba bikin kayak gitu. Kita udah jadi investor udah kelihatan banget, like, oh ini di other country tuh udah nggak jalan. Kalau di sini ya mana ada harapan. Orang demografiknya mirip, misalnya kayak gitu. So that's how you know. But there are some companies where itu tuh Indo-specific. Jadi misalnya supply chain ke warung gitu. Di negara developed country mana ada warung kan. So there could be like misalnya agri-tech gitu. Jadi there are some tech players tuh yang very Indonesia-specific. Mau liatin supply chain consolidation, cutting the middleman, bisa ambil margin di tengah, itu semua kan is very Indonesia specific issue kan. Jadi itu mungkin bisa, nggak usah pakai patokan. Jadi you can say that this is a localized issue, problem statement that we are trying to solve using tech gitu. Nah itu nggak usah perlu patokan karena it's an Indonesia problem. Tapi kalau yang global players, kelihatan banget which one makes money, which one does not make money. The news will also say it. The news biasanya will tell you all the good things. Oh, this player raised X million in funding gitu. Tapi if you dig deeper, you will know that there are some news articles that say that any company tuh ada problem monetization. That's the keyword ya, monetization. Monetization means bisa nggak itu company charge revenue? I charge you $5 aja, customer-nya nggak mau bayar. Atau customer-nya bayar 2 bulan terus tutup account-nya. Kayak gitu. So that's what I mean by patokan. Jadi you know where the company starts, and 5 years later mereka di mana, and sampai sekarang udah bisa bikin money apa enggak? Kalau nggak bisa bikin money, why would you start something like that? Gitu. What was your second question again? On the split of equity, right? Internally, how do you define who gets more stake, right? Jadi it cannot be just based on one factor ya. Misalnya, you put the most money in, jadi you get the more shares gitu. Obviously, logically that makes sense. Tapi secondly is you see their scope of work deh. Misalnya ada CEO, ada COO, ada CFO. Jelas-jelas CEO will have the higher shares ya. Even though bedanya mau tipis pun mereka lebih dikit biasanya kalau CEO. Because they're the number one person we will contact. Investors will deal with, and they're the ones helming the entire organization lah to move forward. Lainnya how to split ya, misalnya depends on contribution, bisa depends on the capital they invest, and so on and so forth. So it's a multiple factor thing ya, it's not just single factor.
Oke, terima kasih Miss Khush untuk jawabannya. Gimana Mas Derivato, sudah cukup ya?
Oke, thank you very much.
Oke, terima kasih Mas Derivato. Baik, kemudian berikutnya untuk kesempatan ketiga saya berikan kepada Mas Arif dari Nekel. Silakan untuk pertanyaannya diberikan kepada Miss Khush.
Hello, Ms. Khush.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. My name is Arif from Naxal. We are developing a green micro-mobility transportation brand such as The Board. It's an electric skateboard brand from Indonesia, focused on Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And also we are have vehicles conversion services at affordable price, started at 2.5 million rupiah, using circular economy model. So my question, pertanyaannya nggak apa-apa bahasa Indonesia aja ya, kayak agak ribet gitu ya. Oke, so pertanyaan pertama itu at what extent itu sebuah company nggak perlu funding atau nggak perlu investor? Kayak kalau company lu bisa run at this level atau speed growth-nya segini, kayaknya lu nggak butuh investor gitu yang pertama. Atau mungkin kayak gimana caranya bikin justru si investor yang nge-pitch balik ke startup-nya. Nah, gimana sih cara bikinnya itu? Pertama itu. Kemudian yang kedua, pertanyaannya tuh lebih ke ESOP sih. Jadi kalau misalnya early stage company gitu ya, valuations juga belum ada, ya masa tertulis gitu ya, misalnya belum ada funding dan lain-lain. Gimana sih, boleh nggak di-share study case terkait ESOP gitu ya, at early stage kita pengen, misalnya udah running 3-4 tahun, kemudian pengen ngasih ESOP ke tim yang udah loyal banget, bagaimana ngevaluasinya dan kayak gimana ngiketnya, kemudian fasting period dan lain-lainnya itu bagaimana, apakah harus juga di namanya mereka ada di akte atau cukup dengan founders agreement atau kayak gimana gitu, kira-kira ya aplikasinya gitu ya, mungkin Miss Khush pasti banyak case study-nya gitu. Kemudian pertanyaan terakhir sih ini aja sih, yang bisa di remark post COVID ini dengan climate fund yang modelnya kayak gini ya, cuacanya masih nggak oke, itu ada perbedaan yang signifikan nggak sih? Misalnya kalau venture capital tuh lebih melihat ini company, masa titik equilibriumnya tuh kayak gimana nih, dari path to profitability-nya sama fund yang dikasih untuk misalnya untuk burn rate-nya gitu ya, misalnya ini lu gua kasih 1 tahun kah, dari yang sebelumnya mungkin 2 tahun bakar uang, kemudian PT 3 tahun udah bisa profit, sekarang tuh dikecilin jadi berapa atau kayak gimana sih? Ada perubahannya tuh yang signifikan, numbers-nya, equilibrium numbers, sweet spots-nya tuh berapa sih? Boleh di-share gitu. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your question. Maybe I go through the number 3 first ya. You're right. Sekarang kan marketnya lagi a bit of a downturn, right? And VCs are a bit more prudent with their investments. Jadi nggak sembarangan ya. So one lens that biasanya we don't prioritize so much, but we will prioritize even more now. Actually, we prioritize all the time, but we will prioritize more now, is unit economics and business model viability, right? Jadi there are actually different VCs tuh banyak yang different school of thought ya. Jadi there are some VCs yang bener kejarnya tuh top line growth ya. Jadi atasnya naik terus revenue-nya, bawahnya kayak bodo amat lo mau burn so much cash, ya udah nanti fundraise lagi gitu. That's some VCs masih begitu. But the VC that I'm part of, or maybe that I can speak for, I can't speak for everyone, right? Is you grow modestly, tapi your bottom line dijaga juga. Because at the end of the day, when you want to exit, or when VCs want to exit, or when you as founders want to exit juga mau jual company-nya, yang bakal dilihat tuh at the end of the day itu bottom line. Nggak mungkin like you can see dari revenue-nya doang, terus bawahnya tuh bener-bener bleeding cash. And then there are other questions that poses, right? Is there customer loyalty? Is your retention working? Is there a lot of churn? Like what's happening gitu kan? So there's a lot of focus on sustainability, unit economics. Is it profitable? Are your gross margins making sense? Are your net profit margins making sense? And are companies allowed to burn? Jawabannya tuh boleh. You can still burn, especially if you're still at an early stage. Karena early stage, we don't expect you to get all the formulas correct, right? It's a lot of product market fit, trial and error testing, A/B testing lah, to see what formula, what's your playbook, right? Now, once you get that playbook correct, then only you can scale. And once you hit a certain milestone, there's no right or wrong number. Kayak once you hit misalnya $1 million revenue gitu, then you can see like other levers to drive to tighten your costs or to increase your revenue drivers gitu, biar revenue-nya naik, cost-nya makin menipis, right? That's basically the path to profitability projections that I mentioned that companies should prepare for. Is there a gestation period, or is there a cycle kayak misalnya 1 year to 3 years sekarang dikurangin jadi 6 months to 1 year? Jawabannya sih nggak ada. Tapi as long as in your medium term, kayak in your misalnya 3rd year of operations or 4th year of operations, itu harus udah kelihatan at least EBITDA break even lah. Kayak, or if you still haven't reached there, ada journey-nya to reach there. Jadi you have in your business model or business plan, udah ada arahannya, your revenue tuh harus hit berapa in order for all your fixed cost and variable cost ketutup gitu. Jadi you will have your milestones, and it depends on the company honestly, because your cost drivers, your cost base, your fixed variable kan semuanya tergantung your performance as well, right? So that one benar-benar there is no kayak lifespan ya. Oh, dalam 1 tahun you need to be profitable. Because in that case, then you mau grow-nya gimana, mau scale-nya gimana kan? If you're really thinking of being profitable, you will not burn cash. Then bedanya apa if you're just normal traditional business and VC backed? Kalau VC kan which brings me to your first question actually. What VCs look for is actually scalability. And it depends on the founder, to be honest, whether you want it to be a traditional business. Jadi you jalan dulu at your own pace, and then misalnya ada profit kan, profitnya you reinvest lagi buat buka cabang kedua, misalnya cabang ketiga. Bedanya sama VC sih bisa buka 10 cabang in one go, right? Because you have a lot of money to burn. So it depends on how fast you want to scale and what is your aim gitu. Is the aim to just be a $10 million business with positive EBITDA? Ya bisa juga. Atau your aim is to become a $1 billion company with $100 million sales and maybe just break even gitu. Itu kan bisa juga. Jadi it depends on the ambition of the founder. You mau VC backed atau you want to be traditional business. Bedanya traditional business and VC apa? Traditional business, you are your own boss. You do things your own way. If you get fundraising from VCs, then you have other people in your home lah. Kayak rumahnya bakal ada more people gitu. You have more board members. You have to align with what they want. You have to do management reporting. Every month harus ada report card gitu kan. You have to give your MIS and so on and so forth. So it depends on the founder which route they prefer to take, and also the ambition, right? You want to be a $10 million business with positive EBITDA, ya bisa silakan gitu. Atau you want to be like a $100 million business with the help of VC pumping, right? It's a lot of capital inflow that helps you expand quickly and scale quickly gitu. Yeah, and then the last one is more on ESOP, yeah. Okay, so ESOP actually is something that is used to motivate your employees, so they can work well and get retained within the company, right? Because salary only sometimes is not enough. Apalagi for early stage companies where fundingnya kan masih scarce ya. Jadi you cannot pay like a BCG consultant misalnya like 100 million, 100 juta per bulan, right? Itu kan berat banget. So the way you entice them to join an early stage startup is by giving them ESOP, which has a lot of equity value, right? So ada yang monetary, ada yang non monetary juga. Nah, ESOP tuh bisa ada a few allocation, right? There could be some for founders. Obviously for VCs we always like to spare some for founders karena founders are the ones running the show, right? Yang megang setirnya kan founder kan. Jadi founder pasti ada allocation for ESOP as well. And then there could be something known as a key employee options pool. And some of them can be reserved for future allocation. Jadi nggak semua udah di-disperse. Some of them namanya unallocated ESOP for future talent juga bisa ada. Now, for this kind of ESOP, there could be various metrics to base them on, right? Jadi number one misalnya performance. Misalnya your performance, your budget tahun ini sekian dolar gitu, sekian million dollar or 100K revenue gitu. Terus what is your achievement? Misalnya your achievement is about 90% or 90 to 100%. Then some of the ESOP tuh bisa cair gitu. So that one is tied on performance, right? And your granting schedule tuh bisa anywhere between like 5 years. Biasanya sih 5 years ya, equally gitu. After misalnya ada audited financial statements are out. Itu bisa. So based on performance, right? Performance, then you can define it, right? Oh, performance is based on net revenue ya, jangan gross revenue after paying your discounts, after minusing your discounts gitu misalnya. That's one, performance. Then number two, it could be on anything, right? It could be on liquidity base misalnya. Okay, founder, misalnya you can fundraise nih in the next 1 or 2 years. Valuation-nya udah 3x our current valuation. Misalnya kita masuk valuation your company, misalnya price per share-nya $10. If you can raise your next round, price per share-nya bisa $30, okay, I will cairin more ESOP to you. Jadi itu liquidity based. And then bisa ada accelerated vesting juga. Accelerated vesting itu apa? It's something like, misalnya you own a company, misalnya kayak Moka di-acquire Gojek gitu ya, itu accelerated vesting karena company-nya udah di-acquire at a good valuation gitu. Jadi it's good returns for the investor kan, jadi you will get more ESOP gitu allocated to you yang bisa udah di-vest. And then there could be other matrix, misalnya you're in a D2C company ya, bisa branding juga, how many influencers or mega influencers you get, and matrix like that, right? So there could be different ways of measuring ESOP, but those are some of the examples.
Okay, thank you Miss Gus for your answer. Untuk Mas, gimana, sudah cukup ya jawabannya ya tadi ya? Oke, terima kasih. Sukses selalu. Dan untuk kesempatan yang berikutnya, this is a last question from Mas Indarto dari Data Biota. Silakan untuk pertanyaannya kepada Miss Gus.
Oke, salam kenal. Saya Indarto dari Data Biota. Kami bergerak di bidang biotechnology company. Kami lebih mengempowering microorganism untuk meremove carbon dioxide dari industri sektor. Kita convert atau kita jadikan objektifnya berupa biorefinery atau biomass. Sekarang kita lebih kepada SCP, single cell protein. Mungkin saya agak terlambat datang. Mungkin yang saya tanyakan terkait dari sisi Vertex Ventures sendiri itu untuk investmentnya, apakah mungkin kalau di Data Biota lebih early stage atau bootstrapping, itu apakah bisa masuk atau ada syarat memang fokusnya di series E ke atas seperti itu yang pertama. Dan dari sisi bootstrapping itu dari kita dari sisi revenue juga mencoba untuk men-scale, tetapi ada parameter lain yang kita acquisition seperti data. Salah satunya itu data carbon dioxide yang kita manage, yang harapannya nanti kita jadikan portofolio untuk carbon trading. Mungkin itu aja sih dari saya pertanyaannya. Terima kasih.
Okay, mungkin on your first question first ya. For Vertex itself, we are an early stage VC with core investment focus to di Series A biasanya. Series A is apa? So misalnya a company is bootstrapped, then we can obviously talk and build the relationship, and then bisa dimonitor when you are as you scale and grow, right? Jadi when you hit your pre-A or Series A funding tool, we can take a look again and invest. Karena that's usually our sweet spot. We hardly do seed stage investments. It's very case by case basis. Tapi ya, sweet spot is usually Series A.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your second question? I remember the data and you want to use that for your carbon.
Carbon dioxide yang the future kami coba untuk carbon trading, penjualan karbon. Mungkin di Indonesia masih sangat murah sekali, 30.000 untuk 1 ton karbon ya. Tapi kita mencoba untuk masuk di pasar internasional, kita lagi proses register sih, untuk harganya memang lumayan beda jauh gitu, seperti itu. Nah itu apakah bisa masuk untuk dari sisi investors gitu, dalam artiannya valuation ya, untuk masuk ke valuasi seperti itu.
I see. Yeah, bisa sih. Tapi if you want to raise money from investors, then you have to just explain what your business model is. If it's just doing pure carbon trading, then I think it's a broker model, right? Jadi kayak jual beli carbon credit aja di pasar international, right? Instead of domestic market. My question would then be, are your credits kayak certified by Vera or Gold Standard or Plan Vivo, atau ini kredit-kredit yang asal usulnya tuh dari mana kreditnya? Karena kan there's a lot of governance around this, right? Like Indonesia tuh for carbon credits mereka lagi keluarin SRM, which is the compliance market. Kan harus lewat dari jalur itu dulu kan before you can sell to international. Karena international sebenarnya tuh belum di permit.
Oke, iya. Ya, thank you. Mungkin cukup sih dari saya.
Oke, terima kasih untuk Mas Indarto dari Data Biota. Miss Khush, ini masih ada satu pertanyaan lagi, apakah masih bisa Miss Khush untuk bertanya kepada Miss Khush?
Yeah, I think just keep it singkat aja because I have another call.
Oke. Ya, untuk kesempatan yang terakhir ini ya, untuk Mas Hizbullah mungkin bisa satu pertanyaan saja untuk Miss Khush, silakan.
Salam kenal Miss Khush. Saya Hizbullah dari Sagens. Jadi pertanyaannya itu sebenarnya cuma satu. Saya kan dapat informasi kalau VC itu investingnya itu ke orang yang ada di belakang startup perusahaannya, atau foundersnya gitu, atau founders atau CEO-nya gitu. Terus untuk founder yang belum memiliki histori korelasi, itu kan berarti kan belum ada ya history track-nya gitu. Kira-kira ada nggak tips untuk bisa meyakinkan VC di luar dari sisi produk atau startup-nya gitu, tapi dari sisi personal founder-nya gitu. Sama kira-kira ada nggak red flag terkait founder atau CEO yang kayaknya ada bakal jadi minus gitu nilainya untuk dari sisi pandangan bisnis gitu.
Usually for early stage VC, there's one of the consideration of factor of investment to founding team ya. Jadi selain your market problem statement, solution business model, everything, there's still a lot of importance of weightage placed on the founding team. Jadi founding team tuh bisa mereka benar-benar entrepreneur for the first time, bisa entrepreneur for the second time, yang misalnya udah pernah exit a startup before, then that one will have more conviction. Number 3, I would say is a complementary founding team. Jadi misalnya founding team satu kuatnya jadi CEO, leadershipnya kuat, punya network segala macam, satu kuat jadi CTO material, and then satu lagi misalnya for operations, misalnya your company is operations heavy ya. Jadi misalnya there's a 3 co-founding team versus just 1 person, yang 3 itu tuh bisa very strong juga. Karena bakatnya tuh beda-beda. Dan bisa saling leverage, right? It's complementary. Versus there's only 1 CEO, misalnya inexperienced, nggak pernah on the ground sama sekali, taunya high level doang. Nah itu a bit of a turn off or a negative point for VCs. Because at the end of the day, you want to be backing a leader who has a great vision but can also execute. Execution is very important for VC. Karena you can talk, you can speak very well, tapi kalau eksekusinya jelek, then it doesn't translate to results, right? Yeah.
Oke, thank you Miss Gus for your answer dan terima kasih juga untuk Mas Hisbolo dari Hisa Games. Nah, sebelum kita memasuki untuk sesi selanjutnya, nanti Miss Gus akan memberikan pertanyaan kepada NextDevers semuanya. Ada 3 pertanyaan. Namun sebelumnya Miss Gus, ini kita juga live on YouTube. Jadi ini ada pertanyaan satu saja Miss Gus, bisa dijawab dengan singkat. Ini pertanyaan dari YouTube. Apakah bagi yang masih ideation sebelum ada traction mungkinkah dilirik investor? Ini apa sih tipsnya? Silakan Miss Gus.
Okay, tipsnya number 1 is do the research on your investors. There are investors who can come in at seed stage as well and ideation stages. Jadi you have to differentiate investor mana sih yang biasanya masuk pas lagi ideation stage, ada investor mana sih yang masuknya series A, investor mana sih yang series B. Have it on a map gitu. Jadi udah di layout. So bisa banget. Otherwise, where does it start, right? Other alternative funds for early stages could be through angel investors dulu. After angel investors, you already grow a little bit. Angel investors can be friends, family, or a colleague, maybe your ex-boss, all of them can do angel investment. Then once you prove out a little bit more, then you can raise from VCs. And VCs tuh ada banget yang seed stage. In fact, pre-revenue, pre-product juga ada. So the tip is do your research on the investors.
Oke, thank you Miss Gus. Meskipun masih ideation, so pasti jangan khawatir ya, pasti masih bisa dilirik investor-investor ya. Oke deh, tadi sudah seru banget ya untuk NextDevers bertanya dengan Miss Gus. Q&A-nya ini begitu antusias sekali. Baik, NextDevers, sebelum kita menuju ke penghujung acara, kita akan mendengarkan terlebih dahulu. Miss Gus, please you can give a closing statement or hope from Miss Gus untuk NextDevers Top 12 Digital Startup. Miss Gus, time is yours.
Okay, thank you to the entire NextDev Academy for putting up such a great event today, and I hope all you top 12 contestants, benefit a little bit from the sharing today. I guess one takeaway that I can remind you guys is the ultimate goal, right, of a startup is to eventually have a viable business model that can scale with consistent VC funding and be sustainable, right? So at the end of the day, eventually you will not need funding at all. And when you've scaled to that right level, right? And I guess choose the right VC that could be a long-term investment partner that you as founders can trust, right? And share the same values to grow with. And yeah, I wish all you guys the best of luck for the remaining journey. And yeah, do keep in touch. Thank you, NextDev Academy team for having me. Been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Gus, for your insight, for your presentation for us for 12 Digital Startup today. Dan NextDevers, sekarang kita akan foto bersama terlebih dahulu bersama juga dengan Miss Gus ya. Kepada seluruh NextDevers, pastikan kameranya dalam keadaan on. Kita akan foto bersama terlebih dahulu dan juga disiapkan untuk virtual background-nya. Dipersiapkan dengan baik-baik dan siapkan gaya terbaik dan juga give your best smile ya. Oke, saya hitung dalam hitungan ketiga. 1, 2, 3. Oke, sekali lagi ya. 1, 2, 3. Oke, terima kasih semuanya untuk NextDevers dan juga Miss Gus. Terima kasih sekali lagi dan tibalah saatnya kita di penghujung acara NextDevers ya. Telah kita ikuti seluruh rangkaian NextDev Academy, ExpertTalks, Investment, How to Pitch Your Ideas to Investor. Terima kasih untuk NextDevers dan juga Miss Gus terutama ya. Thank you for having session with us. Dan pastinya kepada tim NextDev dari Telkomsel dan semoga ExpertTalks kali ini memberikan manfaat untuk digital startup NextDevers semuanya. Dan jangan lupa NextDevers untuk mengajak followers kamu sebanyak-banyaknya untuk memberikan voting NextDev digital startup favorit. Dan juga jangan lupa kita akan bertemu lagi ya. Jangan lupa di ExpertTalks selanjutnya pada tanggal 9 Maret 2023. Saya ulangi lagi, jangan sampai terlewat di tanggal 9 Maret 2023 dalam ExpertTalks Founder Series. Oke, akhir kata saya Meghalatu pamit undur diri. Terima kasih semuanya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Semangat pagi. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.
NextDev, sustain beyond expectation. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation. NextDev, sustain beyond expectation.